Bloomburrow is almost here, and well, this set is so full of flavour and also has some very spicy cards with it. So yeah, let's dive into my top picks for the best singles within Bloomburrow that you should consider picking up for your decks. Let's do this. First up, we have the Seasons, and these are fantastic cards. They are modal cards, very similar to the spree cards that we saw in Outlaws of Thunder Junction. They have their own currency on them, which is paws, like an animal's paw. And they all say choose up to 5 paws worth of modes. You can choose the same mode more than once. There's a 1 cost, a 2 cost, and a 3 cost. It's worth noting that they will resolve in that order in 1, 2, and 3. So you can't resolve the 3 cost ability before you resolve, say, 2 of the 1 cost abilities or anything like that. They resolve in the order on the card. Yeah, they're all sorcery speed, and they're all doing what you want to be doing in those respective colours. So yeah, let's give them a read. So Season of the Burrow, 3 white for the sorcery. Like I mentioned, choose up to 5 paws worth of modes. You may choose the same mode more than once. And then 1 paw is to create a 1/1 white rabbit creature token. 2 paws is to exile target non-land permanent its controller draws a card. And then 3 paws is return target permanent card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield with an indestructible counter on it. So this is awesome stuff. Yeah, you can create tokens, you can exile non-land permanents, yeah, and you can also return stuff from your graveyard. So depending on what point you are in the game or where your board state's at, this is probably going to have some relevance. Give yourself a bunch of blockers, or extend your board even wider so you can attack, remove something of your opponents, or get back that key piece that you lost from your graveyard. Absolutely fantastic. Season of Weaving, I should say, is 4 blue. So slightly more expensive, 6 mana on this one. It's a sorcery, like they're all sorceries. And then choose up to 5 paws worth of modes, etc, etc. 1 is draw a card, so this is essentially 6 mana, draw 5 cards, if you want it to be. Or 2 paws, choose an artifact or creature you control and create a token that's a copy of it. Ooh, very interesting. Create copies of stuff. And then 3 paws is return each non-land, non-token, very specific there, permanent to its owner's hand. So you could create a copy of, say, your Soul Ring, and then return each non-land permanent that's also not a token back to its owner's hand. So almost like Cyclonic Rift, just don't hit tokens, and return all that stuff back to the board. You'll still have your copy of Soul Ring, so you can tap that to start getting stuff back out on the board. So yeah, if you're late in the game, you can copy a big mana rock, a Gilded Lotus, Thran Dynamo, anything that taps for multiple mana, and then you can use that to start spiraling and get your stuff back on the board quicker. It's great stuff. Plus you're balancing everybody else's stuff. Or you could just be drawing cards, and hell, we know there's loads of payoffs for drawing cards in blue these days. So yeah, like I mentioned, it just does everything you want to do in blue. So yeah, anyway, Season of Loss, 3 black. Choose up to 5 paws worth of modes, blah blah blah. Paw 1, each player sacrifices a creature. So you could choose that 5 times. Remember, that include yourself, but say you've got no creatures, you can just force all your opponents to sacrifice 5 creatures. Obviously, they choose, and it could be tokens. 2 paws is draw a card for each creature you control that died this turn. So if you wanted, you could sack 3 creatures and then draw a card for each creature you died this turn. Plus, if you've got things like the Horror Specs, is it the black card that whenever a creature dies, you're going to draw a card as well, like all stuff like that. You can get some great synergies. And then 3 paws is each opponent loses X life, where X is the number of creature cards in your graveyard. So you could sack 2 creatures and then each opponent loses X life. And if you're a graveyard deck, which you most probably are because you're playing this card, you're going to have a whole bunch of stuff in your graveyard and then be able to hit people for a load of damage. So once again, sack stuff, gain value because you're in black, drawing cards, and then also making your opponents lose life. So you could like hit people hard at the end, or just keep digging yourself to get to the win card in your deck. So yeah, fantastic, another fantastic one. Season of the Bold, 3 red. The 1 paw is create a tapped treasure token. So this is tapped, slightly balancing it out so you can't essentially cast this as a free spell because you could create 5 untapped treasure tokens. That would be a bit bonkers. 2 paws is exile the top 2 cards of your library until the end of your next turn. You may play them. So this is the impulsive card draw where you put it into exile and you can cast it until the end of your next turn, which is nice. So if you're doing this on 1 turn, you could do it twice, make a tapped treasure token, and then your next turn you've got access to an extra 4 cards. 3 paws is until the end of your next turn. Remember, end of your next turn, whenever you cast a spell, Season the Bold deals 2 damage to up to 1 target creature. So you can cast this, do the 3 cost, and as your opponents aren't paying attention, they'll forget that this effect is actually still on there, and that is of there, and it will go on to your next turn. Yeah, end of your next turn. It's a key thing. So remember, when somebody plays this, it's not just the current turn they're on. They might tap out to play this, use that ability, and you'll be like, what? And remember, it's their next turn. So yeah, absolutely fantastic. Ping stuff, you know, impulsive card draw, egg to exile, and ramp yourself ritual style in red. So yeah, fantastic. Season of the Gathering, 4 green green. So this one's also 6. The other 3 are obviously 5, apart from obviously the blue one, which is 6 as well. 1 paw is put a +1/+1 counter on a creature you control. It gains vigilance and trample until the end of turn. Nice. 2 paws is choose artifact or enchantment, destroy all permanents of the chosen type. So essentially you could wrath all artifacts and all enchantments. Great stuff. And then 3 paws, draw a card equal to the greatest power amongst creatures you control. Yeah, so you can draw a bunch of cards and you can wipe all enchantments off the field or wipe all artifacts off the field. Yeah, or you could make your entire team a little bit stronger, vigilance, trample, so you can get through to deal that damage and still have your blockers up. Like I mentioned, these are all fantastic. They do exactly what you want to be doing in those colours. If you have any mono-coloured decks, you probably want to be considered throwing these in. But yeah, they're just like the spree cards at the end of the day. But yeah, fantastic stuff. Sorry, quick one, guys. I've been reading some information and it said that if you want people to subscribe, you should tell them to subscribe. So this is me saying, please subscribe. If you made it this far in the video and you're liking what you've got so far, then just hit that subscribe button. It would really help me out. Thumbs up, leave a comment. Thank you very much, guys. Anyway, carry on. The rares, and there's a whole bunch on here that I think are just such good fun. 3 Tree City, obviously no one is surprised that this is on the list. So let's just start with that one. As 3 Tree City enters, choose a creature type. Obviously, there is loads of kindred creature types in this set with Bloomburrow. You've got your birds, you've got your rabbits, you've got your frogs, you've got your lizards, you've got your bats. You know, there's a couple of badgers, there's raccoons. Like, there's loads of kindred creature types. Obviously, there is all the stuff that exists in Magic before that. Think of obviously your dragons, your merfolk, you know, any type of kindred deck, your human decks, your soldier decks. These are all going to benefit from this card. So it taps for a colourless, absolutely fine. And then 2 mana tap, choose a colour, add an amount of mana equal to the number of creatures you control of the chosen type. So if you've got 10 knights on the battlefield, you can now tap it for 10 mana of any colour that you choose, probably like white if you're in knights or soldiers or humans or whatever. But yeah, just absolutely fantastic card. It's probably going to be quite pricey. So if you pull one of these and you've got a kindred deck, just stick it in there, no problem. If you don't have a kindred deck and you don't like playing like tribal kindred type decks, then yeah, just sell it and cash in and use that money to get something that you do want. Dawn's Truce is an instant, 1 and a white, and it's got the gift mechanic. So in this case, it's gift a card, and you may promise an opponent a gift as you cast this spell. If you do, they draw a card before its other effects. So they're going to get that card before you resolve the rest of the effects. So this is important in case they draw into a counter spell or some more interaction which could affect what you're doing. Dawn's Truce is basically you and permanents you control gain hexproof until end of turn. Remember, this is you as well as your permanents, so you can't be targeted. If the gift was promised, though, permanents you control also gain indestructible. So this can protect you from a board wipe. And when we're playing in EDH, we have got 3 opponents. So you don't have to gift the card to the person that's casting the board wipe. You could gift it to somebody else in the hopes that they will find an answer, or maybe they can protect themselves in some other way. You know, there is a whole load of politics you can do with this, which is why I'm really quite hyped on the gift mechanic. I think it's going to be really good fun in EDH games. Over to Kidnap, a bit like Kidnapped. You'll understand why when you read the card. So 2 blue for an enchantment aura. Once again, gift a card. It says enchant creature. When Kidnap enters, tap enchanted creature. If the gift wasn't promised, put 3 stun counters on it. Yeah, and then you control the enchanted creature. So your opponent plays a giant bomb. You can cast this. You don't have to gift them a card. It will tap that creature and you'll gain control of it, but it'll have 3 stun counters. So it'll be 3 turns before, or 3 untaps before you can get control of it to use it yourself. But it could potentially take that problematic creature out of the game for 3 turns. Yeah, great stuff. Obviously, if you gift the card, remember, you can gift it to another permanent, another player. So if somebody is crazy far ahead, you can take their thing and give somebody else a card so they can help catch up. And if that was the case, it's tapped, but you still don't have stun counters on it. So on your turn, you'll be able to untap it. And then next up we have Mockingbird. This is the Italian version because it's the one that was released on spoiler season. And basically it comes in as a copy of a creature on the battlefield equal to the amount of mana you've spent to cast it. So it's an X cost. So you could spend 1 blue mana and it could come in and it could copy something like, say, Esper Sentinel. Great stuff. Esper Sentinel's not legendary. Great. So you can copy your own or it copy your opponent's on the other side of the board. 2 mana, it could copy someone's Dockside Extortionist. Yeah, you see where this is going? Somebody plays a giant bomb, you want a copy of that yourself? Then now you can have it. Someone throws down a Natali, you get Natali. Someone throws down some giant demon haymaker, you get one of those giant demon haymakers. All you need to do is pump the right amount of mana into it to be able to get it. So yeah, I think this is absolutely fantastic. It's one of those great cards that allows you to, or allows your deck to punch up a level. Because if your opponent's playing really fancy creatures and quite strong stuff, you're not playing those, you can put this in your deck and you can get access to that stuff if they play it. So it becomes the best card on the table, essentially, which is great. So yeah, I love the Mockingbird. Good stuff. Reminds me a bit of Farfetch'd. So now we're on to the uncommons and a common. So let's jump into the first one, which is Parting Gust for a white instant, and you gift a tapped fish. So you're going to give somebody a tapped 1/1 blue fish token instead of giving them a card like we saw on the previous cards. So Parting Gust says, exile target non-token creature. If the gift wasn't promised, return that creature to the battlefield under its owner's control with a +1/+1 counter on it at the beginning of the next end step. Remember, this is just exile target non-token creature. It doesn't say that you control, your opponent's control. So this essentially becomes a flicker effect for your own things if you don't gift yourself. If you don't gift an opponent. Or you can exile something and treat it as removal if you do gift somebody. So you can give somebody a 1/1 fish token and then exile somebody else's thing. Or say you're playing a flicker deck, you need some extra value, you can flicker that and it'll come back with a +1/+1 counter at the beginning of the next end step. So yeah, removal and a flicker for deck. So if you're in a flicker, blink type stuff, it's just a slot compression. It's just power creep. It's just getting better. Yeah. Fell, 1 and a black, destroy target creature. No, this is sorcery and it lets it down for being a sorcery, but still, I find a lot when I play EDH and playing Commander that a lot of people do still remove things on their own turns. They don't remove things at instant speed all the time. They like to tap out, make sure they're casting all of their stuff and doing their things. So the fact that this is sorcery speed does hurt it, but I still think it's good, cost-effective removal. Right, Stargaze. This one reminds me a bit of Pillager Bog from Outlaws of Thunder Junction. So this is X black for a sorcery. And look at twice X cards on the top of your library, put X cards from among them into your hand and the rest into your graveyard. You lose X life. So you could cast this for a whole bunch in the end game as long as you've got enough life. Yeah? Or you could just cast it for a couple, get some stuff into your hand, put the rest of stuff into your graveyard. Maybe you want to put the lands into your hand and put the creatures into graveyard so you can cast that big reanimator spell. It can work in your favor as long as you're in your graveyard shenanigan deck. So yeah, I think this is actually quite a good little card, especially for graveyard decks. Wear Down is 1 and a green for a sorcery, and you can gift somebody a card when you cast this, and then if you do, you're going to destroy 2 target artifacts or enchantments rather than just the 1. So it says destroy target artifact or enchantment if the gift was promised. Instead, you're going to destroy 2 target artifacts or enchantments. So you could say, look, you're getting a bit ahead. You've got a Soul Ring, you've got all your other artifacts, you've ramped quite heavily, you've just dropped an Explorer and you're on 6 lands and it's turn 3. I'm going to give you a card, but I am going to take these things away. It creates this balance where it's like, okay, fair enough, I'm not being penalised, You've not just returned to dust somebody and just wiped all their stuff. You're trying to give them something and then take something away to create a more balanced game. So yeah. And now on to the last one, which is the Artifact Creature Shapeshifter Bark Form Harvester. So it looks like a little squirrel type thing with a backpack on. But yeah, it's a shapeshifter, so it's all creature types. It's a changeling, so this card is every creature type. It has reach. It's a 2/3. It's got 2 mana. Put target card from your graveyard on the bottom of your library. So I quite like this because it's a 2/3 with reach, so it's a decent blocker. Yeah, it's also changeling, so it fits into any type of theme kindred type deck. And it has this 2 mana, doesn't need to tap, and you can put a card from your graveyard on the bottom of your library. So if you're in graveyard shenanigans or you're in a heavy combo deck and somebody puts something into your graveyard, destroys something, or counters a spell and it's in your graveyard, you can then get that back into your library and keep going. And then in the event that you don't need it to do those things, it's still a decent blocker. It's still got reach. It can chunk block something, save you from a bunch of damage. So yeah, it's not irrelevant even if you don't need that reanimation type, not reanimation, but that tuck maybe. Is it a reanimator tuck effect of putting it straight back into your library? So yeah, I just think it's probably got a place, and it's probably better in the decks that are going to utilize it most, like combo decks and graveyard shenanigans and stuff like that are tutoring, getting things out of their graveyard. Yeah, it'd be better to go from your graveyard to your hand, but yeah, I just think it's quite niche and it's quite interesting. So, and the fact that it's a common as well, it's great stuff. So, especially with like Relic of Progenitress in Pauper as well. So here we have a bunch of gold cards. These are all legendary creatures which I think could make great commanders and also be in the decks of their respected type of archetype, which you'll see coming up. Except Helga, she kind of creates her own. So first off, Balin the Haymaker. So this is Naya, red, green, and white for a legendary creature, Rabbit Warrior. It's a 4/3, and it has 3 abilities which remind me a lot of Kamena, and you'll understand why in a second. So tap 2 untapped tokens you control, add 1 mana of any colour. Tap 3 untapped tokens you control, draw a card, and then tap 4 untapped tokens you control, put 3 +1/+1 counters on Balin. It gains trample until the end of turn. Yeah, you're in great token generation colours. You're in white, you're in green. You can ramp heavy, your commander helps you ramp. You've got things like March of the Multitudes. You've got loads of stuff in white. There was a bunch of white cards like Hop to It, which generate a bunch of rabbits for you as well for a couple of white mana. So yeah, this is just going to be an absolutely fantastic token deck, especially when you start involving things that untap your tokens as well. So you're looking at like Seedborn Muse, so you can make a bunch of tokens, you can tap them all to draw a bunch of cards, untap them on your opponent's upkeep with Seedborn Muse, then you can tap them all again on their end step to draw more cards, to untap them on the next opponent's turn. Yeah, it gets around not having a maximum hand size because you're doing it on your opponent's turn, so you don't have to discard until the end of your next turn. So yeah, just absolutely fantastic. And once you've got all your pieces that you need on the battlefield, you can just start tapping load of counters, making Balin massive, and then swinging through. She's got that trample, so she'll be able to kill somebody with commander damage, which is only going to take a couple of ticks because it takes 3 +1/+1 counters every time you tap 4 or more. So yeah, this is just absolutely fantastic. Following on from that, we have Helga the Skittish Seer. So she is in Bant, so that's green, white, and blue. Legendary creature Frog Druid. It's a 1/3. And then whenever you cast a creature spell with mana value of 4 or greater, you're going to draw a card, you're going to gain a life, and you're going to put a +1/+1 counter on Helga. Yeah? It's just, this feels so Simic to me. It's like, it's the classic of, you're not just going to do one thing or 2 things. You're going to do 3 things when this happens. It reminds me a little bit of Tulane as well, like cast a creature, draw a card. Obviously there's no ramp, but you can actually ramp with Helga herself. So she has another ability which is tap, add X mana of any one colour, where X is Helga's power. Spend this mana only to cast creature spells with mana value 4 or greater, or creature spells with X in their mana value. Yeah? So you can tap her to generate mana to cast loads of big stuff, which is then going to trigger again to make her even bigger. Like I mentioned before, in the Naya deck with untappers, you could put a couple of untaps in here. You're in green, you're in blue. It's quite easy to untap stuff. So yeah, generate loads and loads of mana. Think of putting things in here like Zavala, your Seedborn Muse, Freed from the Real, all that type of stuff. Plus obviously all your big X spells, whatever you want to do. Obviously, yeah, you can do some silly things in this deck, and it's just super value related. So it might be just like banned good stuff, but yeah, I think this is definitely going to see some decks made around it. Next up, we have Ren the Relentless, which is Demir colours, so 2 blue and a black. It's a legendary creature, Rat Rogue, which is a 3/4, and it has Ward 2. Not 3, just 2. So yeah, calm down, people. If a creature an opponent controls would die, exile it instead. So yeah, and stuff no longer goes to graveyard. It's just going to go straight into exile. So yeah, this could cause some salt if your opponents are on heavy graveyard decks. But yeah, just fantastic set of words. Next up, it has another ability. At the beginning of end step, so this is going to happen straight away as soon as you play it, create X/1/1 black rat creature tokens with the following effect. This creature gets +1/+1 for each other rat you control. Yeah, and X is equal to the number of creatures your opponents controlled that were exiled this turn. Yeah, awesome stuff. So you're going to play this, you're going to play your controlling effects, you're going to destroy your creatures. Remember, you're in black, so it's quite easy to do. And then say you exile or kill, which then go into exile 3 creatures, you're then going to make 3 rats, which are all going to be 3/3s because they're going to get +1/+1 for each of the rat you control. Plus, you start playing this in something like Relentless Rats and all that type of stuff. I think your rat army is going to get quite big, quite quick. So you're going to play loads of rats, loads of removal spells, kill all your opponent's stuff, and then just run away with the game. Just absolute horde of rats just taking over. I think this definitely could be quite a strong tribal deck. So we've got one more section to talk about, and this is my prediction for the saltiest card in Bloomburrow. I think this is going to upset a lot of people just because of the type of decks it's going to create. So this is Maha, Its Feathers Knights. Its Feathers Knight. I believe this is a Star Trek reference as well from one of the Next Generation episodes where Picard gets stuck on a planet, but I'm not going to go into that. I'm sure the professor will probably talk about it in his video when he mentions this because it's got to. It's a Star Trek reference in Magic. It's got to. So Maha, Its Feathers Knights, 3 black, legendary creature, elemental bird. It's a 6/5, so it's well statted. It has Flample, so flying and trample, and then it has Ward, discard a card. Yeah, people are going to struggle to target this because when I've seen people play, even if they've got 6 or 7 cards in hand and they're all good cards that they want to cast, they are reluctant to ditch a card to remove a problem. So it's going to be very interesting because I think people are going to have to start learning, okay, I really want to cast this card, but actually that's going to be a problem. So I need to get rid of that first, which means losing a good card. But it also means I'll still be able to play the game and keep going forward and maybe even go for the win. So yeah, don't be scared of like ditching cards, guys. Anyway, carries on. That's not the worst bit. Ward discard card is not the worst bit. It then goes on to say creatures your opponents control have base toughness 1. Not all creatures, just your opponents. Yeah. So everybody else's stuff is gonna have 1 toughness. Now, why is this important? Because you're in black. You can be running things like Massacre Girl. You could be putting this in a Massacre Girl deck, which just does 1 damage to everything when she enters, or the new one deals damage in terms of -1/-1 counters in terms of wither effects. So it makes it so easy to just destroy all your opponent's stuff. You could be in Rakdos, which means you could be playing things like Mayhem Devil, and you could start peeing everything off. You know, it's like you could put it in the Vren deck that I just spoke about, you know, and then you can make it so easy to kill all your opponent's stuff, and then you make even more rats, you know, and then you start to attack more with it. If your opponents don't remove this, you can kill more and more stuff because they've only got 1 toughness. Your rats just get bigger and bigger. Like, yeah, I just feel like this is the type of card which can create some very oppressive decks, just like Turgid can, because the Turgid type of deck, the type of card Turgid is, and the type of decks that it ends up creating around it. So yeah, once again, it's also probably because in Turgid deck because it's also discard a card effect. But yeah, it's just this is my prediction. I think it's gonna be salt inducing this card. It's a strong card. Don't get me wrong, it's a strong card, and it's definitely going to see some play and definitely going to see some decks built around it. But yeah, just be aware of this one and remove it on site. And if you have to ditch your best card to get off the table, just get it off the table, guys. So there we have it, guys. That's my top picks for the cards that you should consider picking up for your decks out of Bloomburrow. Yeah, don't worry about buying packs, especially not the value ones. Just pick up the singles, get exactly what you need. Obviously, if you're drafting or you enjoy cracking packs and you can afford it, then do so responsibly. But yeah, singles, these are my recommendations. There's actually loads in this set that you could pick up for so many different decks, especially in like Kindred stuff. So yeah, just fill your boots, enjoy yourselves, and yeah, I'll see you all in the next one. Goodbye for now.